Good morning, happy new year, happy Thursday, and welcome back to a brand new season 2023 of The Hunt. For those of you that haven't watched before, this is our web series dedicated towards helping both hiring managers and job seekers navigate all of the trials and tribulations of the job search market. And we're here today joined by Nicole Lipari, recruiting extraordinaire, former real estate professional, real estate guru, job search expert, and someone who has personal experience with the topic we're about to talk about today. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. How's everything going?
Good so far. I mean, my hair made it through the commute this morning with the rain, so can't complain.
Yeah, nothing like dragging you on at 8 a.m. and it has to be a rainy day and all of those things factored. It was really testing your willpower of how much do you really want to be on the show?
Well, I'm here and I'm excited and all the way from Jersey coming at you in the office today.
Yeah, well, no, we're happy to have you, and you have some great context on today's episode. So for anybody watching, this is meant to be an interactive show. So use the comment box. Jenna Roth chiming in. Welcome back to our biggest fan and my wife. But anyone else watching, use the comment box. Tell us where you're watching from. But more importantly, chime in throughout the show. If this hits home with something you're going through or thinking about or battling with, then use that comment box. While we're here live, we'll answer those questions in real time and hopefully give you some good advice. So thanks for tuning in. And we'll get right to it. So today's topic is something we think a lot of people deal with. And Nicole, you're going to be able to speak to your personal experience, but we see the period that you have when you accept a job, you go through the whole process, you finally get that job you love, you're excited about it, you know it's the right role, you go in and you give notice. And that should be such a celebratory, exciting period for you. It's a moment in life. You're moving on. You're moving to bigger and better things. But unfortunately, a majority of you out there that were watching this, that's the part you dread the most, is going in and having to tell your company because you're worried of not only letting them down, then what are the next 2 weeks going to be like while you're transitioning, and how's that going to work, and just filled with so much guilt and anxiety. And the good news is, you have a lot of control over how rough or easy that transition period is. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to coach you through the best way to approach that conversation to actually set yourself up for the easiest transition possible so that that time period can be exciting, can be celebratory, can be enjoyable, and you can move on to that next chapter in life. So with that said, we want to jump right into it. And Nicole, the reason you were so excited to be part of this is because you actually went through this situation. And you are someone who describes yourself as, what do you say, a people pleaser, right?
People pleaser, yes, and anxious by nature.
Anxious by nature, which doesn't bode well for having to resign from a company.
Absolutely. Not a good combination.
So I want to talk through a little bit about that. Your last experience, when you went in to give notice, you were sharing some interesting context with me. So talk me through when you found a new job, you were excited about moving on, you knew it was the right role for you, it was the right move at the time, and then you had an interesting experience play out when you gave to give notice. So talk us through, like, leading into that conversation, what you were feeling, and then how it played out having that discussion with your company.
Sure. So I, had gotten the offer, an immediate excitement, of course. I couldn't believe it. This was going to be huge for me. And then almost in that same breath, absolute dread and guilt, and could feel, my stomach fall into my knees. And a million things started going through my head about giving notice and, letting people down at my current company, and my manager, who I'd formed a really great relationship with, even as a friend. And all of this is swimming through my head, and at the same time combating all of this excitement. So, immediately knew I had to let them know, kind of rip the Band-Aid off, but didn't expect sort of what unfolded after that, because I've gone in totally with the idea of, okay, this is it. This is going to be uncomfortable, but I have to move on. I'm ready to move on. And once I approached them and had given my 2 weeks, it wasn't as easy as I thought going in with that finality.
All right. Well, so let's talk about that, because a lot of you out there watching, I mean, chime in, put a symbol out there to support Nicole if you feel that same way, that you're not alone out there. I think that's number one. So tell us about that. You didn't expect what happened. So what kinds of questions did they have for you? What did they ask you when they found out this was going on? Obviously, it sets in, and then what did they ask you?
I mean, they were shocked. So, immediate response was, is it something here? Is it something we've done? Why hadn't you said something earlier? Had you thought about this? Just general questions like that. And then immediately following, where are you going? Is it money? How much? And really trying to get a better idea of, I guess, what they were up against, and why this was an opportunity that was maybe a little bit more enticing at the time.
Yeah, and this is where it all happens. And Jenna chimes in that she's only given notice once, and when she did, they offered her a promotion, but like blindly giving her like anything they want. So you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that they asked you where you were going.
They did.
Did you
Yeah.
tell them?
Of course I did.
They asked you about money. Did you tell them what you got?
I sure did.
Why did you feel you should, like, why did you answer that way at the time? Why did you give them that information?
Like I said, I had a great relationship. In no way was this a move due to anything personal. It was really just career growth. And I felt like, especially them asking, since I hadn't mentioned anything prior, I almost felt like I needed to give them something, right? Like I needed to
Yeah, why not
almost
answer?
justify and explain myself. How could I do this? What was on the other side that was so amazing that I was even considering it. So I felt like I had to tell them. It was just the right thing to do. So I sang like a canary.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the time, it's like, okay, I'm leaving. I feel good. Oh, they're asking
Yeah.
me this. Fine. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. You're not thinking of the chain of events that takes place next. So you
Hmm.
tell them the company you're going to.
Yes.
You tell them the money they offered you. So what happens next? Obviously, they're taking it all in. The conversation wraps up. How did the next 24 hours play out?
Sure. So, panic on their end, right? So now we're both panicking because I have a million things going through my head, same on their end. Um, they had, said, give us a little bit of time. We want to come up with a solution. We really want you to stay, obviously. But at that time, I'd actually been working with a recruiter and had a pending offer letter that, I wanted to get back over. I wanted them to know that the momentum was still going. I was still excited. So it was like this flip flop of, okay, I'm waiting for them to come back to me with some sort of, I guess, a counter, which I didn't know at the time, but also juggling this offer letter and really wanting to, let that company know it was still in it. So it had taken about, I think, the whole day that day when I'd initially given notice
So you're sitting
for.
there the whole day waiting, and with your self-proclaimed anxiety, couldn't have
Yeah.
been a comfortable day.
Oh, I barely got any work done that day. This is all that was, on the forefront of my mind. And the recruiter too had been reaching out to me about the offer letter, so it was just constant. Hadn't heard back from them, and actually ended up signing the offer letter and sending it back. To which, I let my current company know, and they were still trying to figure out what to do. So at that point, it was like, all right, well, tomorrow, absolutely, we'll sit down. And by this point, I'm like, well, I have the offer letter already,
Okay.
but there's still that little tinge in the back of my head, like, should I hear them out? This is, what's the professional thing to do? What's the right thing to do?
So it wasn't even so much about would this be the better move for you. You're just sitting there thinking, should I hear them out to be nice? Is that professional?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot. I mean, again, I'd love to hear from the people watching if that's what you battle with also, because the thought process is always don't take counters. Counters are stupid. Counters. But some people aren't even in it for the counter. They feel obligated, or like, am I supposed to do this? Is it the right thing to do to hear them out? Is that the professional thing to do? How do I go about that? So anyways, this is great now. You got the offer letter signed, so you're feeling good. So you go home, you have a great night's sleep. You're feeling good, relieved you finally have the job, and you move
Did
on.
not have a great night's sleep, Kevin. Still panicking.
Still panicking.
Still
All
panicking.
right. So now we go into day 2. So you come back the next day. You did not sleep, even though you have this offer accepted. You should be feeling good. You should be celebrating, excited, but you're still
Exactly.
panicking. You come in the next day. What happens? This is day 2
Yeah.
BC or AD, whatever, after the whole event takes place.
Yeah, so first thing in the morning, got there probably around 8:30, let's say. Not there for 10 minutes before I get a message, oh, come down to the conference room.
All right.
We'd love to discuss, the situation. And had gone down to, very, very normal conference room, but had walked into a room of pretty much all the departments, the heads of the departments that I'd worked with
There you go.
directly,
Yeah.
sitting around it, which, 8:30 in the morning is a little intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, these were people that I worked with, like I said, had good relationships with, but I guess just the magnitude of walking into that, and these people that I respected and looked up to, literally hitting me at 8:30 in the morning just made it more real and a little bit more, scary in that moment, and really wasn't sure at that point of where I was going to go with this.
All right. So what ended up happening in that conversation? What did they throw at you? What ended up going down there?
So countered immediately, because they knew, as I mentioned, I told them what I'd be making, so they matched that.
So they matched the exact salary coincidentally that you told them you were earning. So that
Exact salary,
okay.
which was also a big jump from what I was making. And then also mentioned schedule changes. I'd been working weekends, as many of you in real estate know. Leasing weekends are sort of the height of the busy time of the week for us. So that was getting a little rough on me. Had to mention it in passing a couple of times, and they brought that up as well, that they would give me a Monday through Friday schedule, which was very nice. But yeah, and then just funny enough, actually they'd actually come with reviews as well about the company because they knew the name. So
Of the
they,
new company you were going to.
yes, they brought reviews, bad review, like Glassdoor reviews, and brought that into the meeting too, and basically said, "Listen, look at these, hear these out. You don't want to go there." Like,
Yeah, I can't blame them. They don't want to lose you. You gave
yeah,
them the name of this company, so they came in with reviews, Glassdoor, of this new company you were going to. They matched this exact salary you told them you were going to be earning.
yeah.
And okay, so then what did you end up doing?
I ended up, well, in a word, I ended up staying. And pretty much almost immediately after that meeting, they had sent me, a new internal offer letter with all the new terms, and pretty much signed it immediately afterwards without even, really thinking too much about it, because I was just so overwhelmed at that point and so stressed. It just seemed like the easy thing to do and the right thing to do in that moment.
Wow. So do you think it was the stress, the pressure, and just like what do you think? Do you think it was more you felt this was now all of a sudden the right place for you, or was it just like you had to let yourself off the hook?
Little bit of letting myself off the hook, and then of course that people pleasing, part of me as well, where it's like, oh, they've gone through all this trouble, they really thought about it on their end. Look, they brought everyone together from their busy schedules, and that's all of the factors that had been in my head at the time,
Yeah.
to give them another chance, essentially, to stick around and see what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, again, for those of you watching, throw your questions out there if you've dealt with this, or just comment and chime in while we have you for the next couple minutes. But what you dealt with was exactly the same thing that a lot of people deal with. And it's important to figure out where you learn from that and what you would have done differently. And I think for the audience watching, that'll be very helpful as well. Needless to say, you didn't end up staying there. So
Oh.
clearly that wore off at some point. So thinking back on how that process went, and giving advice to those watching who deal with this, who are people pleasers, who don't want confrontation, who
Yeah.
know they're making the right move, but then when they're going through this whole pitch and song and dance, the anxiety becomes too much, the stress becomes too much. How can they set themselves up for an easier transition, an easier process? What would you have done differently?
Well, hindsight, is 2020, as they say, and learned a lot even in my time as a recruiter so far. I think, really thinking about why you even started looking and exploring other opportunities, and really
Yeah.
thinking back to that, having confidence in knowing yourself, and really going through again those factors that had you looking in the first place. Of course, I probably wouldn't have gave them so much information, in terms of letting them know the company, the salary, and I think there's a way to still keep that relationship, because I think that was a part of it for me too. Is I didn't want to burn any bridges, but there's a way to still keep and maintain that relationship without giving that information. Just let them know that you're in a transition. There's a lot going on for you right now. You'd be happy to catch up once you kind of settle into this new role, and let them know more info then. But in the meantime, you really just have to go with the motions, and you'll be in touch.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because if you think about it, if you didn't give them the salary and you said it was a pretty
Mhm.
big jump for you,
Yeah.
and you didn't tell them the company name, it sounds like the only thing they could have come back with, they probably would have thrown some money at you, but if it was that big of a jump, they probably wouldn't have thought to throw you that top. They would have given you a little more money. It would have still been less than the new offer, so that wouldn't have swayed you. And they
Good
wouldn't
point.
have known the company, so they couldn't throw the reviews at you. So all they had left was to tell you you're not going to work weekends anymore. So
Mhm.
if the same situation were stacked up, they told you you're not going to work weekends anymore, the salary was going to be a little bit higher, but still less than your new offer, what do you think you would have done in that situation? You
It's a
think
good
you
question.
Yeah,
Um,
you probably would have still committed to the new place.
yeah, no, I think that wouldn't have been as much fodder, like you said, at that point to really um, consider it as deeply as I did, you know?
Yeah. You gave them a lot of ammunition. For those watching, this is not for those of you who like your company, want to stay there, and are just hoping for a counter so that you could stay. This doesn't apply to you because in that situation, stay. This is for those of you who watch and who, out of guilt and nerves and anxiety and just you get a great offer, you know it's the right move, but the company begs you and pleads you and pleads you, and that gets you to stay, and you know it's for the wrong reasons, but you do it for your own emotion. This is how you stop yourself from going through that, is being more cautious and guarded on the information you give. And Nicole, you put it perfectly. So to ask an analogy. Have you ever dated somebody and you decided to break up with them?
Yes, I have.
When they asked you why, what don't you like about me? What can I do better? Did you tell them exactly what was wrong with them?
No, at that point it was over. I
Why
it wasn't
wouldn't you
worth the
share with them
conversation.
though?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you share with if they asked you like what's wrong with me? Why wouldn't you share? Well, I don't like this about you. This is no
Yeah.
good with you. This isn't good with you.
Well, to go back to what I said earlier about burning bridges, that's just going to do exactly that. And it could give them hope too, right? At the end of the day, if you're still engaging, right, at that point in conversation, maybe they're thinking, wow, maybe this isn't the end. Maybe there's that glimmer of hope. And
Yes.
if there's for you, if this is it should be it.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
for
let
those
anyone.
Seinfeld fans out there, there's a great line that George thinks he created. It's not you, it's me. And he goes out with this woman, and she's just everything he hates in a significant other. And he decides to break up with her, and he gives her the "it's not you, it's me" line because he doesn't want to lead her on or give her any reason. That takes the easy way out. And she begs, "Please tell me, tell me, tell me." And he snaps, and he tells her everything that's wrong. She ends up in a mental institution. Um,
Oh,
and it
that
creates a
escalates.
whole windfall. So extreme example, but Seinfeld, very realistic. But the point being, those of you out there that think like you're doing the right thing, being nice, telling them exactly where you're going, that's giving them hope and giving them something to latch onto and giving you a superficial reason to stay. The humane thing to do, and from what you realize, the better thing to do for yourself is don't share that information. It's irrelevant what the dollars are. It's irrelevant what company you're going to. You can regroup with them at the tail end. It's not going to make, if you're leaving, it's not going to make them feel any better knowing where you're going versus not knowing where you're going. They're still losing you. So the only reason they're asking that question is to give themselves some ammunition to find something to use. And I think you gave a perfect example of why that works against you and how going from a situation that could have been very exciting, comfortable, I'm leaving, thank you for everything, I don't want to share any information now, I'll put you in the best spot possible over the next 2 weeks, but my mind's made up, and closing it off. You went from a very easy situation to torturing yourself for 48 hours, sitting down at the round table with the heads of the 5 families going over everything about this new company and what's wrong, and feeling so guilty and just pent up with stress that you just said, okay, I'll stay, I'll stick it out.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see how that could have changed by giving less information. So, I mean, what final advice do you have for those people out there when they're getting asked these questions, they're sitting down for the notice period and they're getting asked, where are you going? What can we do differently? And they don't want a confrontation. They're nervous about that.
I mean, of course, remain professional, but do it in a way, like I said earlier, where it's leaving that conversation maybe open later on. And it's not necessarily giving the fodder to combat things that you're having issue with at the time. If you're ready to leave and you know this is the better opportunity for you, keep that confidence and keep in mind that you started looking for a reason.
Yeah.
Just remind yourself that, and keep professional and don't stress like me.
And
But I
well,
put myself through.
yeah, no, it's a great point. And again, we want to wrap up with thank you so much for giving your story and your context. And it's so important. The closing thoughts, those of you out there that are giving notice, less is more. To Nicole's point, if you know you're ready to leave, you know you have the right role, don't share anything. Don't share the company name you're going to. Don't share the compensation. It's irrelevant. And you can let them know that you love everything they did for you, but really that information doesn't matter. You don't want to share where you're going or what salary, because it really doesn't, it's not important. What is that you found a role that you feel is better for you. You thank them for everything. You're going to give them the best of your efforts the next 2 weeks. And then you'd love to stay in touch going forward if there's ever anything you guys can do to help each other out, and leave it at that. And you're setting yourself up for a much more enjoyable, rewarding last 2 weeks. And you're setting the company up to move on, right? We use the relationship example. Let that person move on. Stop dragging them along and making them feel like there's a chance. All right. So on that note, again, we want to thank Nicole. We hope you're going to join us again for another episode. But we thank you so much for your story and being upfront and putting yourself out there. And for those of you watching, if you weren't able to log on this morning, use the comment box throughout the week. Nicole or I will be following up and answering those comments and questions. And as always, if you're in the job search, you're looking for help, reach out to Nicole. She's tagged to this post. Connect with her, send her a message, give her your feedback on the episode. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another brand new episode. But make sure you follow Advice Personnel on LinkedIn so you stay up to date on all the content we're putting out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Nicole, how do you feel? First episode wrapped up.
Fantastic. I mean, it's funny to look back. Like I said, the hindsight, and talk about this subject, but it was great, and I'm hoping it's helpful. Really, at the end of the day, I'm hoping it helps people.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure it will. So I hope everyone out there has a great rest of the week. Thank you for watching The Hunt, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Take care. Thank you.